This is Robert Clinkybeard and David Anderson with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing business content from accomplished leaders to bring you value, scale your business, and better yourself personally. We hope you really enjoy the show, and I encourage you to share with your network so they can subscribe and we can expand these messages globally. We are also super excited to be supported by two brilliant sponsors. If you're tired of measuring properties, Site Recon platform fully automates measurements so you can focus on sales. So think measurements, think Site Recon. The other sponsor is Company Cam, who make it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field, no matter where you are. Company Cam brings documentation, communication, and liability protection together in one simple, easy to use app for you and your entire team. Company Cam is the only app every landscaper needs. Check it out. Hi, this is Robert Clinkybeard with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. So I'm really excited today to be joined by Kyle Kroeger. Kyle, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem. So yeah, I've been, you've probably seen recently, listeners, that I've done a press release about sustainability, my support around sustainability, and it's very passionate to me coming from Scotland and being involved in the green industry. So yeah, I thought Kyle would be an outstanding guest today. So Kyle, tell my listeners a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, just give them a frame of reference.
Yeah. So I've been a sustainable infrastructure investor for 10 plus years now. I originally started my career out in, first I went to Purdue University for undergrad. After undergrad, I studied finance at Purdue, and after undergrad, I went to Chicago to work a few years in investment banking there, where I sort of found my path and base in finance and investing. I was always enamored by sort of the stock market and options trading, and that whole gamut. I quickly learned that really the real world isn't like the movie Wall Street. Right. And a lot of it is doing, the basic Excel work, or even creating PowerPoints, or even conveying a message appropriately with founders or executives. And so there I built this base of a wide variety of things, right? Seeing a lot of different industries, doing a lot of different functions. In investment banking, you have to be dynamic, right? So you learn a set of skills that are dynamic, and over the time, right, I quickly became enamored with, solar, sustainability, ways that we can build the foundation for the future, as well as other like emerging technologies in sort of the green tech space. And during that time, I had landed into a couple companies that I had followed that were public, and one being Terraform Power, which was a company that was going right at IPO. It was a yieldco entity, which was basically like a dividend or cash flow oriented yield stock that was basically a spin out from a solar manufacturer called SunEdison. I came across them and had been following them, and was fortunate enough to join their team on the mergers and acquisition side, doing solar and wind acquisitions.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And so I actually went up to my hometown, and ever since then I've been in the space, working in solar and wind investing, and then had recently graduated into private equity infrastructure, doing a lot of different things, right? Even beyond just solar and wind, but landfill gas to power, waste to energy, water projects and water investing. And so there, so I've been there. And then more recently, right, wanted to transition into more of an entrepreneurial role where, I believe that there's this massive gap between institutional understanding of investing sustainably and sort of that retail investor, and trying to bridge that gap to help all of us do our part to make sustainability a reality, rather than just this pipe dream that everyone strives for.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to, dive into that more because, the more and more I get into it and I see all this messaging and, we obviously had that recent conference across Glasgow that sort of helped me inspire me in terms of getting behind it. I mean, just for, I suppose the people that are now just beginning to understand that a little bit more, but wanted to dive deeper and maybe even think about some type of investment, whatever that looks like. I mean, what would be a way for them to just get a better understanding?
Yeah, I think for an individual or a retail investor, I think it makes sense for you to look under the hood, ask the questions to whatever funds you're invested in. What is truly behind the hood? There's a lot of noise in this space. A lot of products that are being pitched. It wouldn't be the first time financial products had been pitched to somebody that weren't truly what they are. And so ask those questions. Take a deeper look into the funds that you're invested in. If you're invested in individual funds, use the different ESG ratings and scoring from reputable sources to understand what's the composition of the fund. Things that I've been diving into is really digesting sort of the weapons-free type funds or gender equality type funds and seeing what is actually in them, right?
Right.
As an individual, you may not have that same expertise to be able to hone in, but there's different resources out there. Morningstar is, a good resource. MSCI or ESG ratings can really tell you what is behind those funds. But even that, ask the underlying fund manager, right? What are they doing to make the portfolio more sustainable or ESG friendly or more socially responsible? Whatever your goals are in investing, ask those questions. One thing that's important, I believe that sort of the reason why all of this is important is because businesses that strive to be sustainable or meet ESG metrics are actually more profitable, right? They're more profitable because they're already thinking about sustainability. I think sustainability is actually a profit-driven goal. Well, people aren't solving for sustainability for profits, but sustainability is really, it's kind of the vice versa. It's you're already thinking about the long term in mind.
Right.
Long term translates into constant success or constant limiting the variables that can impact your business negatively.
Right. I mean, you talked about a couple of resources there. I think you said Morningstar, and the other one was what was the other resource?
MSCI ESG ratings. They're one of the more well-known providers out there, and they do their own sort of independent.
Okay, yeah, because I know you also mentioned about asking the fund manager and what they're doing to improve their rating or become more sustainable. I mean, is are most fund managers that accessible, or do they have layers that you have to try and go through, just trying to figure out ways in which you can do your own research and really truly look under the bonnet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what most people don't realize, when they get sent these prospectus here in the States, you get sent a prospectus or even the disclosure, statements, and everyone gets them in the mail, right? And they're like, well, what is this?
Throw it in the trash or throw it in the recycling, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, recycling. Yeah. Recycling, exactly. But one thing people don't realize, right, is right on page 2, there's the email of the fund manager, right? Mm-hmm. And the contact information. So reach out to them. Make it a point to ask them. And if there is no call out on their efforts in the prospectus for ESG or sustainability, call them out on it. Say, why? I don't see that being a part of your portfolio. Why is that, right? And if they aren't, or if they're non-responsive, think of other options that are out there. Vanguard is a great example. Vanguard already has a S&P 500 index, which here in the States, right, is sort of the baseline for the general market. You can invest in that fund, but sans all companies that are fossil fuel oriented companies or don't meet that sort of ESG guidelines that they've outlined in the fund. And so, yeah, that's a great, one example, right, of just tracking the general market and getting rid of the noise of non-sustainable
Right.
mindseted companies. Yeah.
So, we have a bunch of listeners from, I've got some from Europe, got some from Asia, and, just in case they don't know, I mean, explain a little bit what ESG means, just so that they have a true sense of what that
Yep.
term is.
Yep. So ESG, and it's three-pronged approach, and it's really a goal, right, of meeting three different sets that roll into kind of what I call sustainability as a whole. And those three are environmental, right? So, renewable energy practices, carbon related footprint, sort of what's your carbon footprint, the analysis associated with it. How can you do things more sustainably with your manufacturing processes, supply chain, et cetera. Social. So, what are you doing to, bridge a gender equality gap or provide, opportunities to minorities, or even the governance side of things. So, equal pay, flat organizational structures that allow, empowerment of your individuals and not necessarily this hierarchy, massive hierarchy or unequal pay amongst people and your employees. And so those usually roll up and are individually scored and rated by different agencies or individuals. There's a lot of cool emerging companies out there that are solving that ESG scoring outside of traditional rating agencies. And they'll take that analysis at each individual level to roll up to an overall score. And so it's still emerging. I think what's out there now, in my opinion, is dominated by the rating agencies like MSCI or Morningstar. I do think that 5 years from now, we're going to have a lot of new players coming out that have very sophisticated technology. There's a lot of stuff being done in the AI space to be able to get smarter on what's actually going on behind the hood of underlying companies or even funds.
Who would you say is like the leading driver for sustainability? I mean, is it being driven from the States? Is it coming from Europe? Where can, again, entrepreneurs or business owners just sort of trying to just look ahead and anticipate what's coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, that's a great question. Something I try to crack and get my head around, every day, really. I think it's a multi-pronged approach. It's driven at the state level, and the federal level. And I think those type of policy decisions, have started the wheel in a number of instances. But I always have a slight preference to the private markets. The private markets need, from both a capital standpoint, but even the businesses and the people behind the businesses, right, need to practice sound sustainability. And so starting to put those practices like, small things like energy efficiency retrofits, like keeping that in mind. If, you need a new boiler in an office or something, keeping those practices at the forefront. It's inch by inch, right? So that's sort of the private business side. If I would say the private capital markets, sustainability is not cheap. To do things right, it's not cheap. That's capital intensive, right? It requires a ton of capital, and that's been one of the biggest constraints, in my opinion, over the last years. But by if you're doing something that's not cheap and you're doing it the right way, you're not going to have to. It's not the quick fix. You're not going to have to change it, a year or two from now. We need to shift the mindset from quick fix to let's just do it right away. Let's just do it the right way. So the more capital that can be put to work in this space, the better. I think people raising capital, people putting their own personal capital into the space that can fund these type of projects is going to be very, very important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you along those lines? I mean, are there any types of grants, any type of tax credits? If a company start to go that direction, what type of support will help them, just incentivize them to go that direction?
Yep. Here in the States, there's plenty of programs in terms of investment tax credits on solar. So anytime you place solar, you'll get a 30% investment tax credit, which would mean, say it's $1 million install, you get $300,000 back as a credit for your taxes. There's other small sort of energy efficiency type retrofits that people can do that do have a small, credit component. There was, an electric vehicle credit. So I would encourage anyone based on their sort of state and federal policies to search and make sure and look, right? If you're ever thinking about, changing the way that you think about your, something at your home or your business, always look up what's the right way to do it. That's going to be better for the environment or going to not be that quick fix. Then secondarily, see what's offered by your state, local, or federal, government in terms of those credits. And so, yeah, it depends, across the different regions, but they're definitely out there, right? It's important, it's been important for governments to use that as a stimulating factor to start the growth,
right,
of that practice.
Cool. So, I go and coach a lot of companies, and a lot of them are, struggling with employees right now. They're trying to make sure they retain their existing employees as well. And I get asked a lot of questions around, well, what's something that we can get behind as a company, whether it be some type of a charity or movement. Sustainability comes up a lot. And one of the challenges I hear is then, well, I don't know if we have the time to dedicate towards doing the research, or I don't know, how to even start that ball rolling. How have you seen companies make that shift in terms of, whether they've hired somebody to help them internally, whether they've used some type of outside resource just to understand and get fully behind sustainable practice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would encourage considering how, involving an outside party to evaluate your practice and what you're doing. One thing that's, I think, is going to be a very important part of the way business is conducted in the future is your footprint. So, in the way you do your footprint analysis is done in the way of impact reporting. In certain areas in Europe, ESG reporting or impact reporting is a sort of a required regulation for certain industries. I think that's going to happen in plenty of regions, countries going forward. I think that's only going to increase. And so it's important you do steps now to understand how does that impact my business. So that's from a risk standpoint with my customers and suppliers, or on the liability side of things, depending on what your business does. And it's complicated, right? And that requires an outside party to help you understand what you're doing now and what you're doing now and how you can get to a point where you're doing the right thing for the long term. And you'll be shocked because, right, if that you're an outside party, a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's expense. But doing the right thing translates into profits. It's proven. It's been that way for hundreds of years, right? There's a reason why people are seeking this out. It's just the right way to do things.
Yeah, not only profits, but also, if you get behind some type of thing you're passionate about, and get your employees to get behind it as well, then there's going to be benefits there. You're going to hopefully attract employees, hopefully retain employees. So, there's all these hidden costs that, could happen if you're not behind something that's, really you're passionate about.
Yep. So, and that brings up a good point too. A lot of companies will want to be solving for the profits for shareholders. That's not the right approach, right? You're going to be completely missing the social and even the governance side of things. You could be excelling at the environmental, but the moment you're only solving for that, you can have 100. Say on a scale of 0 to 100, if your E score is 100, and the other two are 10, you're averaging. Your total score is going to be, extremely low, right? And so, if with the mindset of profits, it's the mindset of profits, but also reinvesting into your community and doing that through equality efforts, equal pay, keeping your employees motivated and happy, offering things that you as a business can offer that your competitors can't. And that is sustainability at its core.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I know we're running out of time here, but if people wanted to get in touch with you just to understand a little bit more, maybe you help them with that transition, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'd encourage people to check me out at theimpactinvestor.com. I have a free newsletter that you can join. I'd love to interact with anyone. I can talk about this stuff all day long. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to join my newsletter. You can contact me, Kyle, at theimpactinvestor.com directly. And I'd love to chat. Looking to speak with anyone on these topics. I'd love to hear from you. And so that's the best way to reach me.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Well, Kyle, really been a pleasure talking to you this afternoon. Hopefully my listeners have gained a little bit of knowledge from you discussing the topic, and hopefully get some people reaching out to you, but really enjoyed our time today, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, right. Cheers, Kyle.
Cheers.
Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and we've got some great takeaways for your business and your personal life. This is Robert Clinkenbeard along with David Anderson, and we'd love to get you and your friends to join us on our journey. 2 quick things before you go, listeners. Check out our website, thecommerciallandscaper.com. You can subscribe, you can share with your friends, but more importantly, check out our sponsors. We have Site Recon, who are going to help to capture measurements on your property and create a really streamlined process. And we have Company Cam, who make it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field, no matter where you are. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.